What's up out there? We are back with some more Path of Exile, and this is my Chainhook Berserker. So I've basically taken a lot of the experience that I've got with my Cyclone build, and specifically my Cyclone Berserker build, and applied that in here. Now this build is a total work in progress. There is nothing set in this. This is only level 79. It's got a long way to go. It's definitely not been battle proven, if you want to call it that. The gear that I've got on here is kind of just some gear that I had left over from some other builds. The only thing I actually really had to put together for this was the mace, and I need to put a better mace on here, but this is benefiting from all the other gear that I've had before. I do have max res, so we're capped there. I've got positive chaos res, which a lot of my builds just don't have that much detail at this point. They're really crappy, but it's well put together, and obviously I'm missing some flasks. Like, there's a lot of things that I need to figure out and run with on this, but we're doing well. I'm short on life. I know there's things I need to resolve there. I know there's a lot of gearing aspects that need to be fixed, but for what this build is, it's working really well. So I did put a Chainhook build together last league at some point. It stalled out in, say, Act 7 or 8. I can't remember where, but it stalled out fairly early, and I wasn't outputting enough damage. So combining the knowledge that I've got with running my Cyclone Berserker and then looking at what the actual Chainhook skill says, you gain radius per rage and you gain rage on attack hit. So this is going to be a rage-based build is what it's really looking for. And what you get off the ascendancy of Berserker is Crave the Slaughter, which gives you increased attack speed per rage. You also get Rite of Ruin, so you get rage effect and everything like that. So I wanted to follow through and build this one like I did my Cyclone build and focus on rage. So you'll see that as we go into this. So we're doing 65,593 DPS on my Chainhook. That's the tooltip DPS. POB says this is like 150 or 160,000, something like that. So the damage ramps up a decent chunk. Now you'll look at the tooltip for the shield charge, and this is like 96,871, and it's only running a 4-leg. I see why people like shield charge. That thing is great, but that's just my movement skill. So as you've seen in the little intro section that I put in, I'm using that to move around, and then I'm using Chainhook to go around and wail on things, which I could probably do things the opposite direction. And again, I need to POB all this and make sure that I have the right support gems and everything in here, because I don't think I quite do just yet. But basically we're running Shield Charge, Chainhook, and then Crushing Fist, which this is only doing about 55,992 damage on the tooltip. But I've got Culling Strike on this, and I've got a lot of block built in with the shield. And then I've got Leap Slam for crossing voids and things like that. So it's not really being used, it's just there. So we're relying on Shield Charge for movement, Chainhook for single target damage and a lot of AoE damage and things like that. And then Crushing Fist for any kind of block damage and just extra damage that we get on there. I'm also running Pride and Haste at the moment. A little bit of reservation efficiency so I can actually use my skills, but I could be persuaded to do different things. I just kind of threw those on. I figured they're going to make me move faster and do more damage. So I just threw those on for the time being. I could probably do Determination, maybe Vitality. I wanted to get my reservation efficiency up so I could get Vitality in here, but I don't have it quite yet, so it's just not there. Now, as far as gear goes, with Chainhook, you cannot use anything two-handed. So it takes a one-handed mace, scepter, sword, or axe. And I've opted for a one-handed scepter, so that's what I've got on here. And I can't remember which one I was using. I was using a unique mace for the longest time. And I ended up crafting this one up. It does a lot better damage than whatever I had as the unique weapon, so I swapped it out. I'm running a basic armor package on here, so this is armor and evasion here, armor here, and armor on my shield. So it's not quite hybrid, but it's not, I don't know, I'm mostly focusing in on armor for defensive layers, but there's some evasion in here, mostly because I had a 6-link version of this. And like I said earlier, the gear in this is just kind of stuff that I had laying on the ground. So like that helmet's there. I threw the Dawnbreaker on here because it's got a massive ton of armor and a big chance to block. So that was the biggest reason that I took from this. And I think that's a pretty cool pretty cool shield to have on anyway. We've got 15% movement speed, which I'd like to have. Actually, 20% movement speed with the implicit on here. And then some cooldown recovery because I'm trying to get the cooldown recovery for the Crushing Fist. And we've got a bunch of resistances on these gloves, nothing special about those. Helmets for the implicits has got increased area of effect and attack damage. Increased attack damage because Chainhook is an attack. And let's see, what else do we have? Nothing really exciting on the helmet or anything. Armor is just kind of the armor that I had. This has got chance to fortify on the armor. We've also got global fizz, increased global fizz damage. Again, nothing real exciting. And then the rings and amulets is basically whatever int and dex and resistances capped me out. There's nothing terribly exciting there. Belt. The belt is basically resistances on there and then mace or scepter attack damage and stuff like that. Now, I do have, where do I have that? I do have brutality, so any elemental damage I have is pretty much negated, but we go from 65,000 to 53,000 by taking brutality out. Now, I know that's tooltip, I really need to sit down and POB it, but brutality looks like I'm doing the most damage with that, even though I've got some elemental damage on my mace and some other stuff cropping in there. So for Chainhook, we've got Chainhook, Shockwave support. This is the first time I've actually used Shockwave support. I see why it's recommended to put this on Cyclone, and I actually, if this build sucks and doesn't really do what I want it to, I may revise this and go for a mace build and try to do Cyclone Berserker with Shockwave. This looks really cool, does a lot of damage, it adds to your attack radius and everything when the Shockwave goes off. So if you noticed in the intro section that I showed, there's this big cone AoE that blasts out, and then the Shockwave after it's a big circle that comes out. So I've also got Shockwave on my, what is this? Crushing Fist. And I believe, no, I didn't put it on Shield Charge, but I put Shockwave on a couple of different things because this is really cool. And you can see it teeing off whenever it goes. So it does a lot of damage. We've also got Pulverize, Brutality, Faster Attacks, and Melee Fizz damage support. So that's all my 6-link for the Chainhook. Then we've got Leap Slam and Faster Attacks over here for this. We've got Vitality, Pride, and Haste. I can't run Vitality yet, as mentioned earlier, so it's just kind of hanging out there. And then up here, we've got Shield Charge. Actually, I need to swap those around. We've got Shield Charge, Melee Fizz, Faster Attacks, and Pulverize. I could probably reorder some of that and do some different things there. We've also got Crushing Fist with Culling Strike, Shockwave support, and Expert Retaliation. I want this thing going off a little bit more often. You know, honestly, I could 6-link either one of these other skills. We could do 6-link of Chainhook. Like if I was to go, well, I guess let me rephrase this. If I wasn't using Chainhook and I wanted to focus in on Shield Charge with like a Retaliation skill as a secondary, I could totally put a Mace skill over here with Shield Charge on that and 6-link and then 6-link the Crushing Fist and kind of redo that. There's a lot of options here with this build and I don't know, it looks really cool. So I may tinker with that at some point, I don't know, but I'm kind of limited to the one-handed mace on this, which is why we've got the shield and all that stuff. Let's see here. Do we need to talk about anything else on here? Probably not, so we can go into the Ascendancy. As mentioned, I've got a Berserker, and I need to do my final one. I think I could actually do that now, which I think I'm going to take Defy Pain. But basically, I started off with Crave the Slaughter. That was the first Ascendancy I took, so that every rage also grants increased attack speed. Then I also went with Aspect of Carnage for the second Ascendancy, so I take more damage, but I do more damage at the same time. And then the third one was Rite of Ruin. And like I said, I think the fourth one's going to be Defy Pain. Now, this is typically how I roll with my Cyclone builds and everything. You'll notice it's a lot of the same stuff. We come through Born to Fight, go through Heart of the Warrior, Warrior's Blood. I think I actually came out this way to begin with. I think I came through Barbarism so that I could get over to Battle Trance as early as possible. I think that's how I did it. And then at some point when I was starting to run out of mana and it became a big problem, I ended up repathing some things. So you'll notice that a lot of this is the same. We go through these nodes here. We come down through Master of the Arena, Bravery, and Art of the Gladiator. That's kind of what I've done with my Cyclone builds. We've also got Resolute Technique, came over here to Bone Breaker to get increased area of effect, more mace damage, things like that. Hardy for life regen. You'll notice I'm over here for warrior training to have increased area of effect. We've got strong arm for damage, one-handed mace damage, or one-handed weapon damage, things like that. We've got Lust for Carnage for increased attack speed and Leech. We've got all of these nodes with Cannibalistic Rite to reduce mana costs and shunt some of that off into life costs and everything. We've also got Aggressive Bastion. This gives you chance to block, increased damage with shield, or while you have a shield, you get increased damage, things like that. Same thing down here with As the Mountain, chance to block, increased chance to block, things like that. Spine Cruncher, mace damage. Pretty much it was just right there, so it was real easy to take. We've also got Brinkmanship. I came into this, and I know I don't necessarily need this. It's not adding damage. I wanted to see how big the AoE I could get, and everything on here is increased area of effect, as well as the 0.3 meters to melee strike range. Let's see here. We've also got Bastion Breaker for increased fizz damage. Vengeance for every rage grants 1% armor, gain 3 rage when hit by enemy. We've also got Ribcage Crusher. I kind of want to mess with stun on this in some regards, but maybe not. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I get a lot of extra stun on this. And Shield Charge, I think both Shield Charge and Chainhook can stun fairly well, so I don't know, maybe we'll tinker with that. Goblin's Blood for life regen and max life. Cloth and Chain for the increased Ellie Res, evasion, armor, all that stuff that comes off there. And then Retaliation over here for attack skills, deal 20% increased damage while holding a shield. Increased defenses from equipped shield, which you see why I put that Dawnbreaker on. And then increased attack speed while holding a shield. We've also got Defiance over here. This is increased chance to block, plus 3% chance to block attack damage while holding a shield. Attack steal 24% increased damage and another 60% increased defenses from equipped shield. And then I came up this way for Berserking for max rage, increased attack speed, all that good stuff, as well as monsters can't block your attacks. So they can't block and they can't evade. I was feeling like there was a chance in there where I would throw out the Crushing Fist and it would just disappear. Like I didn't hit them. It didn't miss. It just went down, but it didn't hit anything. So I put both can't be evaded and can't be blocked just for the grins of it, just see how it goes. And then this wheel over here, we've got Spirit of War, reduced mana cost, leech, all that good stuff, increase. I was doing mana recovery on this, but then I guess I need to back up for a while. I played this through the campaign without using any auras at all. I basically got, I don't know, about an hour ago, I started rolling some auras. So I had mana regen, the regenerate 5 mana per second on here, and I swapped that over to increase reservation efficiency of skills. What I was using was this thing here, this Gruthgal's Pelt. So this gives you a bunch of armor and evasion, but it disables spells, and you basically can't use any spells. You get life regen, a big plus 271 to life. You get pretty good armor and evasion, and you only have to be level 38 to equip it. So you can see why I was putting that thing on. A lot of decent defenses on it. I know it's not auras and everything, but I wasn't running spells anyway. Everything on here is pretty much easy to run. So where to go from here? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, there's a few things, like I could run Molten Shell with automation. We could throw that on here. We could throw Blood Rage on here. I'm thinking I want to come down and definitely grab Disciple of the Slaughter, come up here to Savagery, get Frenzy Charges to stack up. What I see this build as is a big clearing build. That's why I focused on all the AoE stuff. And that's kind of what I'm pointing it towards. I really need to sit down and POB it. A lot of the decisions that I've made have just been based on, well, I'm right in the neighborhood, so I could go pick the mace skills there, or I'm sorry, the mace nodes here, here, and here. Like I'm already in the neighborhood to pick up the shield stuff. One of the things that I prioritized, I know that you can get damage off shields to get the amount of damage, or to get similar damage out of a one-handed weapon as you would out of a two-handed weapon. You have to have a shield on, or you have to have dual wielding, or things that can take advantage of that, and you have to go pick that if you get what I'm saying. So I tried to make sure, and because I have to have a one-handed weapon for this skill and I have a shield equipped, I tried to pick things that were shield, increased damage while shield equipped, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm trying to say. So, I path down through here for that, path into here for the block stuff over here. We've got shields down here, and it just happens that there's some really cool nodes that are just basically right off the beaten path. They're just right there, so I can go pick them up. Now, if I go into POB and I tell it to give me like the nearest nodes for damage and everything, it keeps pointing me over here to this martial experience for this has got a lot of stuff for two-handed weapons, and I couldn't figure out why it kept telling me to come over here, but then I realized what it's telling me is that hits have a 30% chance to ignore enemy physical damage reduction is really good, even though I would lose, there's not much on here. I lose almost all the points for taking this, but I gain a lot of damage because I have a chance to ignore enemy damage reduction. So that's what it's trying to steer me towards. Unfortunately, it keeps doing that for stuff like this over here too. There's one of Razor's Edge, chance to ignore physical damage reduction. So like I kept wondering, why is it pointing me at sword nodes or two-handed nodes and stuff like that? And it's that damage reduction. So if I could use a two-handed weapon, a two-handed mace, I'd probably like this a lot better, but I'm gonna have to figure out a couple things that I need to iron out is scaling damage with this because it's a one-handed weapon. Obviously, I can use some shield stuff on here, but POB kind of throws some red herrings. Like, they're good points to put into, but you're losing a lot of what you're putting the points into, if that makes sense. So, like, I can get physical attack damage leached his life out of this, but the other two items on this node just are worthless. Same thing with this one, and then this one, basically, the bottom two items on here, the 100% increased total recovery per second from life leech, and then hits have 30% chance to ignore enemy physical damage reduction. Those are the only ones that are going to apply. So if I put 3 points into this, I'm not really gaining much. I'm not gaining any damage because I don't have a two-handed weapon. So yeah, I mean, it's some extra damage and all, but it's kind of I don't know what else to do with it. But otherwise, I'm not entirely sure. I'll probably come up here and grab these 2 life nodes. Those are really good. It's certainly possible that I come over here and grab Soul of Steel and pick up that. Maybe I don't know, maybe I'll pick up these Fortify nodes. I haven't quite decided yet what I want to do. I need some more life for sure. I need some more damage. There's plenty of mace nodes over on this wheel. And I think there's some other mace stuff up in this. Well, there's this one here. So there's other things I could do, but this has got like crit on it, and I don't have anything set for doing crit. So I don't know. I'm a little unsure of where to go at this point. Like, this was not too bad to put together, and it feels really good to play. It's got some really good clear on it, and it's working as well as it could possibly be. How this scales up to level 95, I don't know. Like I said, this is kind of an early on look at it. It definitely needs a lot more work, but I put this together in between the 2 Battlefield weekends, the playtest weekends, so it's kind of just thrown together hastily and not much planning, not much concern with what it is. It's just kind of thrown together. But I like it. I think it's a really cool concept. I see a lot of people saying Chainhook sucks. I don't really understand necessarily why, because this seems like a really good clearing skill. I'm sure there's a ceiling that it's going to hit and it's just not going to get any better. But at the level that I'm playing this at right now, it feels really good. It went through the campaign without too many issues. I've died a few times, sure, but it's not any more or less than I normally do. So at any rate, this is my Chainhook Berserker. You'll probably see some more of it later on as I build it up a little bit further. But that's going to do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.